Hey there, it's Louie, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to crochet your amigurumi into little finger puppets. Now if you followed my channel in the past, you'll know that I have come out with a video in the past showing how to turn your amigurumi into finger puppets, but I've come up with a new easier technique that I think is a lot better, so I thought it was time for a little bit of an update. Now this technique is best done on amigurumi where the bottom of your piece is where you would sew it closed. So for my pod people little characters here, that's what I call these characters here. They're called pod people. But for these characters, you finish your piece at the very bottom. So this is where I would sew it closed and stuff it. But you can do this pattern, this technique for patterns where you might not have the end be at the very bottom. So for this pattern, for example, for my little triceratops pattern, the end is actually at the tail, but I will be showing you how to turn your amigurumi into a finger puppet by leaving a hole in the little stomach here. Okay, so for this pattern, all you're going to need is a crochet hook. I'm using a size G 4mm crochet hook. You'll need some yarn, obviously. Whatever kind of yarn you're using for your amigurumi will work perfectly. I like using cotton worsted weight yarn. That's my personal preference. You'll also need some stuffing and a darning needle. I suggest using a crimped end darning needle like this. It'll help you get into the ends a little bit easier. Okay, so let's just get right into it. All right, so the first step for this is leaving a hole at the bottom of your amigurumi, wherever you want to have your finger puppet insert. So for pieces like this, where the bottom is actually where you sew on, that's pretty easy to do. You just basically skip the last round where you decrease it down. But for pieces like this, you'll want to actually make a hole on wherever you're going to want to put your finger into it. So here I have one that I've already made ready to put a finger puppet insert into. And all I did was, when I got to the part where I did the belly here, instead of single crocheting all the way around like it said to in the pattern, I instead chained 3, skipped 3 stitches, and then single crocheted all the way around. And then when I got back around, I single crocheted into the chains that I made from the round before. And this left a nice little hole at the bottom right here where I could actually add a little finger puppet bit. For pieces where you have the base, where you would have the very bottom of it is where you can leave the hole open, I suggest leaving the hole at 12 stitches around, or anywhere between 9 and 12 stitches. That's the amount that I would I find is easiest. So for this pattern, for this little zombie pattern, all I had to do was not do the last round where I would decrease into each stitch around and leave 6 stitches around. So now I have 12 stitches around here. And for this pattern, what I also want to do is I'm going to slip stitch into the last stitch. So I'm just going to slip stitch 1 time into this last one. And then I want to cut the yarn. I've already cut my yarn here, and just pull it all the way through. Okay, so you should have anywhere between 9 and 12 stitches around. For these base ones, I have 12 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, where this little end is coming out of. For this piece, I actually don't have 12 stitches, or at least it's kind of hard to tell where the stitches are, but you just want a place to sew together this finger puppet insert that we'll be making into this piece. So for this, let's see, we can go 1, 2, 3, we can do it on the side, 4, let's say 5, 6, 7, 8, and let's say 9 would be like right here. So anywhere where you can have at least 9 stitches, but anywhere between 9 and 12 would work best. Okay, so once you have a hole in your piece where you can actually insert a finger puppet insert into, you now need to make your finger puppet insert. So let's go ahead and start crocheting our finger puppet insert. We're going to make a different part, put it into the inside, and then sew it on. So let's go ahead and make that really quick. Okay, so for this video, I'm actually going to use a different color yarn than the yarn that I used for the bottom of my amigurumi. But normally I would use the exact same color. So I'd use this shade of blue instead of this lighter blue. But for this video, to make it a little bit easier to show what parts are getting sewn onto what, I'm going to use a slightly lighter shade. We're going to start with a magic loop, and if you don't know how to do a magic loop, I'll show you really quick. All you're going to do is pinch the yarn with your index and thumb so that the yarn is facing downwards, and then go over your two fingers, your index and middle finger, and then go back over the yarn, making a bit of an X like that, and then go back around and then grab this yarn with your last two fingers, your pinky and ring finger, and you should have that little X there. And if you look at it on the back, you should have two strands of yarn over your fingers. Now take your crochet hook and go under the first one and hook onto the second one and pull that through and kind of loop it around like that. Now you want to grab that same end right here, okay? Grab that end that you just pulled the loop through over, and then pull that through the loop you made, and that'll create a little chain, which will lock your yarn in place, and you can pull it off of your fingers. Okay, and we're going to pull this a little bit tighter. If you just pull this end, it'll close this loop a little bit. Okay, so for round one of your finger puppet insert, you just want to single crochet 6 times into the magic loop, or the into the magic loop. So we're just going to single crochet 6 times. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's it, and then we could just pull this nice and tight. That's going to be the end of round 1 for your finger puppet insert. For round 2, we're going to work into each stitch all the way around. Now this is going to be worked in the round, so you won't have to turn at all for this entire part. But we're going to start into this first stitch that we made right there. And we're going to single crochet into the first stitch, just single crochet 1, and then increase into the next stitch. So here's our second stitch right here. We want to do 2 single crochets into that second stitch. So 1 single crochet and then an increase. And you're going to repeat that 3 times around. So let's do a second repeat now. 1 single crochet and then an increase. And this is going to bring you up from 6 stitches to 9 stitches. So you should have 9 stitches by the end of round 2 here. So this is our last repeat. We do 1 more single crochet, and then we do 1 more increase right here. Now you should have 9 stitches around. Okay, now I found that 9 stitches is the perfect amount for me because it's just the gauge that I use and how big the piece is. It just makes a perfect finger size insert. So basically we're making a little piece that's going to go just perfectly around our finger here. And I find that having 9 single crochets around fits perfectly for me. Okay, so for the next 3 rounds, we want to just do single crochets into each stitch all the way around for 3 rounds in a row. This is just going to add a little bit of height. It should end up to just our first little knuckle right there. That's how high you want to go. And I find that 3 rounds of single crochets gets me there just perfectly. So let's just go ahead and do our 3 rounds of single crochets with 9 stitches in each round, which, you know, that's pretty easy. We just need to single crochet into each stitch, so it's not that crazy. Okay, so here I am at my last stitch in my rounds of just single crocheting into each stitch around. You can see how it fits on my finger just a little bit. You just barely want it on your finger. Now I find that doing 9 stitches around makes it fit perfectly on my finger, but if your finger is a little bit bigger or your crocheting is a little tighter than mine, then you might want to make it a little bit larger by increasing more than I did in round 2. So for example, if you want it a little bit larger, you might want to do an increase into each stitch around, which will be 12 stitches around instead of 9. But I find that 9 works perfectly. Whatever you do, try to make this last round only have less stitches than whatever you're going to be putting it into. Okay, so this has 12 stitches around and this has 9 stitches around, so it should fit in really easily into the bottom of your amigurumi. Okay, now the last round for your finger puppet insert, so we did our 3 rounds single crochets. Our last round, we want to increase up to whatever the bottom of our amigurumi is. So for this case, we have 12 stitches around. So we want to increase up from 9 stitches to 12 stitches around. Now, if I was making a finger puppet insert for this little guy here, then all I have is 9 stitches around. So for my last round, I actually don't have to increase up. I just need to do single crochets in each stitch because I don't need to make any more than 9 stitches around. But we need one more round regardless. So for our last round here, we're going to be doing a single crochet into the first 2 stitches and then an increase into the next to bring it up from 9 stitches to 12 stitches around. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. We do 2 single crochets. So 1 and 2, and then you want to do an increase into the next stitch. And then we're going to repeat that 3 times in a row. We're basically just increasing up to whatever we have for the base of our piece that we're adding the finger puppet to. So 1 and 2, and then an increase into the third. 3 and 4. Okay? And make sure to keep this long end. We're going to use that in just a second. Okay, so here is our last bit. We're going to do 2, 1, and 2, and then an increase into this next one right here. 3. Oops. I split my yarn a little bit. There we go. Okay. And to finish this up, we just want to do a slip stitch into the last stitch that we got here. So here's our next stitch. We just want to do 1 slip stitch. And then we can cut the yarn. You want to leave just enough so that you have something to sew it together. So that's probably good. And then we can just pull it all the way through. Okay. Now grab your needle, and you should have this little tail end from the center of your piece. Thread that on your needle and go straight through the top of your piece. You can see you just want to go all the way through and come out straight through the top like that. Okay. Now keep this on your needle, and what we're going to do, you don't need our crochet hook anymore. We can put that to the side. What we're going to do is we're going to take this needle and go straight through the top of our amigurumi. Go into the hole and then all the way up and through the top just like that. We're going to pull it up. Don't pull it too far. You just want to have it just about that is probably good. Okay, so now we should have our finger puppet insert into our piece. Try not to get it too far in. That's probably good. So we have 12 stitches around for our finger puppet insert and 12 stitches around in the last round of our amigurumi. So what we want to do now is we want to sew these together. Now, the best way that I found to do this is using the tail end from your finger puppet insert and threading that on a needle. I'll just thread that on a needle just like this, and we're just going to sew it all the way around. Now, the first stitch, I want to work into the finger puppet insert, into the place where I did our last slip stitch. Remember that slip stitch we did right at the end, right here? We want to go into that same stitch and come out through where we did our slip stitch on the finger puppet insert as well. Okay, so it's lined up perfectly. Just like that. And we're just going to keep going around. So now we can go into the next stitch of our finger puppet insert right here. I mean of our amigurumi, and then back out through our finger puppet insert, the next stitch in that one. And we'll just keep going around. Now don't go too far because we are going to still need to stuff this up, and that is important. But you do want to make sure it's kind of tight. You can kind of see how it's being sewn together there. And the stitches should line up pretty well because you should have the same amount of stitches into the bottom of it. So I'm going to go about halfway through here. Let's just do a couple more. One there. Let's do this one right here. See, I'm just making sure that they're lined up, and I'm going under both loops of both of the finger puppet insert and our amigurumi itself. Okay, so now that I'm about halfway through, I want to start stuffing our character up just a little bit. Now, you don't need to stuff it too much because you will need some space in there. So what I like to do is first I grab a kind of an okay amount, about that much. And then we find the place in between where we haven't sewn it together yet and just make a little bit of room. And we just want to get our stuffing up to the very top of our piece first. Okay, so just a little bit of stuffing. We don't need it stuffed too much. Okay, basically you want to go above the finger puppet insert first. Okay, So that our head of our character has a pretty good amount of stuffing in it now. But now we want to put stuffing around the finger puppet insert itself. Okay, so we want to grab our stuffing, and now you want just a little bit. So this actually is a great amount. You just want a small amount here, and you want to go and stuff the side where you've already have sewn it together. So what you can do is you just go around and make sure it's around to where you've already, to get to the places where you've already started sewing it in. Okay, and now I'm putting my finger into the finger puppet insert, and I'm moving the stuffing around so that it's right here in between the finger puppet insert and the amigurumi. Okay, so I'm making sure that there's stuffing all the way around of our piece. We'll just add a little bit more stuffing, just a small amount, onto the other side of our finger puppet insert right here. Okay, and I'm gonna try to not stuff it too far up. See how I just have it right at the base here? That's probably good. And now I'll put my finger in the finger puppet insert, just kind of move it around, make sure that it's on every side of it. And now we can keep sewing our piece together. So we're just gonna keep taking this and sewing these pieces together, nice and easy. We just have a few more here. You'll see at the very end here, it's actually really easy to just make sure it's all connected and doesn't come loose. Okay, so we're just coming to the end. I had to pull this tighter, which revealed that we should have the same amount of stitches. Okay, so just 3 more. 1, 2. Now see, I'm gonna pull this. It's gonna show we have just 1 more stitch right here that's connected, just like that. Okay, now to finish this up, I'm gonna take our end here and I'm gonna go straight down and come out somewhere on the side that's pretty close. Let's go like right here, just a few stitches up. And now we're gonna take our other end of the amigurumi itself, our tail end here, we're going to just go into the exact same spot, which is right here, and we're going to come out through the exact same spot, like that. And now we can just double knot these, nice and close. 1 and 2. And then we can cut it close. And then I like using the back of our needle to just kind of stuff that little knot back into our piece like that. Okay, now we can pull this top part to make sure that the top of our finger puppet insert goes as high as it can there. And we can actually just cut it nice and close. I like to like kind of push my stuffing down like that and then cut it like that. And then when I let go of my piece, it'll just disappear into my amigurumi. Okay, so that is how you're going to sew on a finger puppet insert into your amigurumi itself. And now I still need to add my hair to my little zombie here, but I do that after it's sewn together anyhow. And it's very snug. I mean, like, it's just perfect. Like, it's just a perfect little finger puppet little character right here. Now, like I said, this works best with my little pod people amigurumi. Now, and if you want to check out more of these pod people amigurumi characters, you can by just going to my website, clubcrochet.com. I have a bunch of different characters, a lot of Halloween characters. So we have like Frankenstein, a witch, a little Mario, and a mummy. This is brand new this month. But also you can do this for your for amigurumi where it's not at the base. Now, how you do that is we would make a finger puppet insert that only has 9 stitches around instead of 12. Remember how at the end we increased 1 more time to get it up to 12 stitches around? So for this piece, what I would do instead is I'd just do perfectly 9 pieces around. I'd pull that top thread all the way through the very top of our piece right here to make sure that it's all the way through. And I would sew it together by going through these stitches. Now, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to find what stitches to sew it onto. But because it's at the bottom of your piece, it doesn't really, it won't really show that much, especially if you use the exact same color as whatever amigurumi you're making. So for this case, I would make it orange. And make sure to have every part of your piece stuffed before you finish sewing on the finger puppet insert, so that you don't leave any pieces unstuffed. All right. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. And if you are an experienced crocheter, make sure to check out those comments. You might be able to answer some questions for other people as well. Really get the community part of Club Crochet a thing. And if you really like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel down below. I do a bunch of live stream crochet alongs and patterns, just like this pattern here. I'm actually doing a live stream crochet along this Sunday for this pattern. So keep an eye out. Make sure to subscribe and hit that little bell icon so you get notified whenever I come out with new patterns. And if you want to check out a bunch of extra patterns that I have, consider becoming a Club Crochet member. Members get early access to future patterns and videos, just like this one. They get access to a bunch of exclusive patterns, just like all these Halloween amigurumi right here. And there's just a bunch of extra patterns like this guy here. I call this a little fungaloid. We have, this is a pattern that is coming out very soon. A little pigeon. There are a few secrets about this. If you follow my live streams, you'll know about the secrets of this pigeon. We'll put him to the side. But I have a bunch of amigurumi just like that and a bunch of other patterns that are coming out very soon. So yeah, thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you guys very soon. Pasta la pizza and happy hooking. Let's have this zombie sign us out. He'll go.